Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2023. Here we are. Doesn't seem that long ago that I feel like we started 2022. I feel like years go by faster and faster.
Mm-hmm. It still feels like 2022 to me.
It really does. It's strange.
Because we're recording this in 2022.
That's right. Just like we got a DeLorean and we headed back to the future. Anyway, so we just figured what we'd like to do. Hope you're you'll be watching this. It's January 1st or a little later, 2023. We hope you've had a wonderful holiday Christmas season, and we just thought we just wanted to do a quick kind of recap of 2022 because as much as the years sometimes feel like it can go fast, when sometimes we kind of can forget all that's really happened in the year and realize, wow, a lot has happened. It doesn't feel long, but at the same time, you just kind of forget a lot of the things we've done together as a community, the things we've done, whether it's in missional community groups or on Sunday mornings or at our potlucks or just everyday gatherings as we hang out together as friends. So 2022, this is kind of, I guess, what it looked like. We're going to kind of do this in a bit of a nutshell.
Sure. So we kicked off the year with a podcast series called "What If Jesus Was Serious About Prayer?" And again, it was based on a book by Skye Jethani.
That's right.
And we had just kind of in the end of 2021 finished another book by.
We didn't finish it.
Yeah. Well, we didn't finish it.
We finished half of it.
We finished half of it. It was about the Sermon on the Mount, which we finished in 2022.
We're coming to that soon.
But January is the kind of time where we typically focus on spiritual practices or spiritual disciplines. And I mean, prayer is kind of the most basic discipline. And I think that's what we were kind of feeling this year is we really wanted to get back to something that was entirely basic and just
fundamental.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So we a few things we covered and, in this is the idea that prayer is about communion with God. It's not just giving our lists of things or our our desires, even though he doesn't want to hear all of that. Yeah. It is really about communing and relating to God.
To God, yeah.
It's okay to be kept simple.
Yeah, and I think that really stood out for me too, is that the simplicity of prayer. Sometimes we want to overcomplicate it or we get sometimes into formulas. And I think it's perfectly okay to pray prayers that other people have written. Absolutely. That was something that is not really our religious tradition in our particular faith. But for us, though, I thought the idea of just keeping it simple and basic, very conversational, treat it like God is actually with us. And that it's not something we just do on Sundays.
Yeah. And then...
Or before meals.
Or before bed.
Yeah.
But all and that kind of leads us to this idea here, that I love that Skye Jethani put forth in this, because this really impacted me. The idea of cultivating a praying life.
Yes.
Not just a prayer
life, yes.
I think sometimes we think prayer life, which is good. He says that's good, but where it's just like those designated moments, and that's what you do, as opposed to a praying life, which you're going to have those designated moments.
Yeah.
But just throughout our day, that we're just constantly connecting with God.
Yeah.
And that's another thing where we go back to just keeping it simple.
Yeah. And being able to connect with God in whatever you're doing, because of Jesus, we know that he experienced all the things we experience, so we can relate to him, and we don't have to wait and make a list and come to him at a specific time. We can right in the moment express our frustrations or our happiness or our sadness, and he's right there with us.
Yeah,
I like that.
Then we moved into the story of God for dummies.
And we're not calling anybody a dummy.
I always have to explain that.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's based on the book series For Dummies. And again, it goes along with
the basics thing.
We're coming back to the basics. So the basic story of God. Because sometimes, and we've talked about this before, we as church and church leaders, and we pick our things we want to talk about, and we sometimes focus a lot on the trees and we miss the forest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, if you remember correctly, there's four basic movements in the story of God, which is creation, fall, redemption, and restoration.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought one of the things that we talked about, I think a lot in these moments, but even with each other, the idea that we don't focus on creation a lot. We kind of like creation that happened and then it's fall.
Yeah. That's kind of the way the Bible is written. There's literally only like 1.5 pages of creation.
Yeah.
And then like there's like thousands of pages, it seems like, or many chapters and books about the fall. But just getting back to why God created us, because he wanted to be with us. And that, I think if we don't get that right, the rest of it doesn't really make sense.
That's right. And it's not about, I think some people can get a little like, well, you've got to have some focus on the fall. Yeah, we do. Yeah. We just don't want to over focus, because we want to focus on God's original intent, his original purpose. And we do want to focus on the beauty that is Jesus, and then a life to live after that restoration thing isn't just about when we get to heaven. There's an element that's lived out right here
and right now. And I think that's super important, is that we do tend to focus a lot on the fall, but it's only part of the story. It's not the whole story.
It's one quarter of the story.
And really, it's not even the focus of the story. The pivot point in the story is Jesus. Yeah.
Then we moved into the summer, and we just wanted to kind of add this. This wasn't a sermon series and all that, but this was a great opportunity to serve in the community, and that was True Wheels.
Yeah, so our youth pastor, Aaron, is a very avid cyclist.
He loves it, yeah.
And he came with the idea of maybe hosting an event where we could help kids learn to repair their bicycles. We thought that was a good way to give back to our local community here. So we held an event in July, and we did a registration for 50 teens, and we had some, Aaron had some, he works at a bike shop, and he had some friends come in and help him. And they trained kids on how to repair bicycles, and we made a day of it. We had a lunch and pizza, and we set up a little bike riding course, and had a lot of fun with the day. But we got a lot of feedback from kids and parents how much they appreciated the idea that they learned an actual skill to be able to repair basic bicycle repairs, like tuning up your brakes and changing a flat and things like that, how to maintain your bicycle, lubrication and cleaning, that kind of thing. So again, we came up with some sort of values for what we wanted True Wheels to be or to exhibit. And one of the ones was we wanted it to be able to teach repair to keep bikes out of landfills, which is good for the environment. We wanted to again, it's sort of environment conscious, be able to repair bikes instead of just throwing them away or replacing them. And the third one is to develop community. Us as a church in our community with the people who are have cycling as a hobby or an interest, and just overall working together for a common purpose.
Yeah, and it was just great. It was.
We all participated as a staff, and we had lots of volunteers from the community and from our church participate in it, and I think everybody had a really good day.
They did. Then also in the summer, we did go through a series called Hi-Fi Seminary, which was, it's kind of fun. Just something that actually, again, kind of, I think was the brainchild of our youth pastor, Aaron.
Yeah.
And it's something, it just very reminiscent of a lot of Aaron and my conversations, both being just lovers of music and kind of birthed from that. And basically it's just, it's the idea of, one, the challenge of sometimes listening to music that you may not choose for yourself.
Yep.
Because sometimes it's the greatest way to discover things and find out and expand sort of what we're listening to.
Sure.
Also the challenge us to listen to lyrics, because I think sometimes some people are really good at it. I think a lot of times it just sort of becomes, the thing you do, and just to really think the lyric through. And there's sometimes they're very, very profound lyrics in the songs that you might be listening to.
Or just maybe even thought-provoking.
Yeah, that leads you down a road that the artist never intended.
Yeah,
but it leads you down there, and that's why I think sometimes even though it's not intentional, sometimes a lot of lyrics can point you to things of Jesus.
Yeah,
they again may not be intentional, but it really speaks to, I think, a lot of people's longings that Jesus does want to fulfill and stuff like that.
Yeah, even if the song is highlighting a problem that the artist has no idea what the solution is, but for followers of Jesus, we know that Jesus does provide us with not necessarily things to fix all of our problems, but ways to help us get through the problems and to basically to love each other, which is our world needs a lot more of that. So
that's true. And then the other part of summer, we did Hi-Fi. We did that Hi-Fi seminary for a month, and we moved into this other thing called Into the Bible Verse, which is just basically talking about the Bible and that wonderful tool it is to help us understand who God is and who we are as a result of that, and just how to read that hopefully a little bit better, more understanding.
Yeah, and just I like that idea. Sometimes we, as followers of Jesus or Christians, take the Bible for granted.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have been taught certain things and we just accept them without really thinking them through. And we just wanted to provide some resources and some tools to help people get more out of reading the Bible. And just the idea of reading it as a community together and talking about it, which we've really been trying to focus in our church community. And it isn't always easy.
No.
And lots of times it's the people who have been followers of Jesus or Christians the longest that kind of struggle with this. So I'm really glad we did this series.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I think, like, for me, one of the biggest things that I usually walk away from, and this is a John Walton quote, and basically it's the idea that the Bible was not written for us. Sorry, it was written for us, but it wasn't written to us.
To us, yeah.
It's such important to remember that we are reading something written to an ancient culture.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we can forget that. That meant that they may have heard this very different than we, and we need to do what we can to understand that. And there's so many resources now that are available
to everybody easily.
Yeah, that are really helpful for that. Things that I wish existed 10, 20 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years
yes.
ago.
And then we moved on to finish the book by Skye Jethani, What If Jesus Was Serious?
Yeah, the one that we actually started
in 2021.
In 2021.
So we picked up in the middle of the book, and
1 year later.
So we changed the title of this series to Seriously.
That's right. We want to trick people.
Yeah. So they wouldn't think we were just preaching the same thing or talking about the same thing.
We fooled you. Not really.
Yeah, I know. And again, for me, we just finished this series recently.
We did,
so the Sermon on the Mount is kind of Jesus' core teaching, and he preached that sermon more than once. It's recorded in Luke and recorded in Matthew in two different locations. So we assume that they were at different times. But and again, a lot of the teachings that are in those particular accounts carry through into the parables and other interactions Jesus has with people. And so we really, to me, it was just understanding Jesus' teachings a little bit better. And I thought Skye was very masterful at breaking it into readable segments that we could digest easily, and not, there's just so much there that you could read over it quickly and miss so much.
Yeah, it's so fundamental for just what it is to be a follower of Jesus, and I just can't recommend more that we, like, even in our own time, that we revisit, whether it's that, but definitely the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, but even just returning to that book, because Skye has so well just broken down certain things that, again, are very fundamental, challenging,
and if you actually want to see a sort of visual representation of it, the season 3 of The Chosen has just dropped, and I watched the first episode, and it focuses solely on the Sermon on the Mount, and how challenging it was for Jesus and the interactions with the disciples to actually host the event, kind of thing. And we don't always think about that, where thousands of people are traveling, and what kind of notoriety that would get from the religious leaders at the time and the Romans, and how they were all there at that, and how they were really trying to see what Jesus, this was kind of his first big foray into a large kind of mass gathering. And just lots of little things that I know that they do take some creative liberties with it, but I thought they did a really good job staying true to the core teachings that Jesus presented in the written accounts, and I thought it was a sort of a good sort of resource to help understand that just a little bit better.
That's cool. So you can That's The Chosen. If you've not watched that,
Yeah.
please do. It's. I've not watched any of season 3 yet, but what I've watched so far.
Only dropped on Sunday, so
yeah.
we were very excited. We were actually at a Christmas party Sunday night, and we stayed up late to watch the episode.
And that kind of brings us right to the end to December, where we basically focused on the idea of presence.
Yep.
Not present, but presence as sort of our Christmas theme. The idea of Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah, and that ties right back to the God story for dummies we talked about, where we really wanted to understand that why God made us, that he initially made us to be with us.
Yeah.
And that desire hasn't changed.
Yeah, and you can see that through the narrative of the Old Testament, that he's got this desire to be with us, and he's not, even as a result of the fall, he's not given up on us. It wasn't wash his hands. It's all woven through there. Obviously brought to wonderful fruition with Jesus, which is that ultimate symbol of God being with us.
Yeah, I really like that when Jesus says to his disciples to when they ask him to show the Father to them, he says, well, have you not been with me all this time? Do you not know what I'm like? Do you not know who I am? That if you know me, then you know the Father. And I think that makes Jesus very relatable, and it may change our perspective on what we think about God, because lots of times we think of God as angry or judgmental, or he's always trying to catch us slipping up kind of thing. And really, he just wants to be with us and to love us.
That's right. And then we move into the idea of the, Holy Spirit. As Jesus leaves, the Holy Spirit comes, that presence that we can now interact with. That's not limited to a location or certain people, which we see that within the Old Testament, and that allows us to live fully a kingdom life, though imperfectly, until Jesus comes. And it always pointing us back towards Jesus. So it's a reminding of that physical presence that can be still felt and in amongst, and kind of coming back to a little bit full circle to the first series on prayer, that this allows us to be in communion and relationship, and we get to interact and be present in all aspects of our life with Jesus.
Yeah, I really, for me, this was something I learned new about Advent this year. And I know we kind of touched on it last week when we were doing our Hi-Fi Seminary Christmas special. I didn't grow up knowing about Advent or celebrating Advent in that way. And for the first time, I actually learned this year that the hope and peace, the first 2 weeks of Advent, are looking forward to the new creation and Jesus coming back, not looking forward to his birth, which is the second 2 weeks really focus on. And so I think that fits in nicely with that part where the Holy Spirit is with us now. God is with us in spirit until he comes again in bodily form and brings the new creation together. So I thought that for me, that was
that's really cool.
Made it really, really special for me this particular Christmas season, as I've been trying to learn more about Advent, how it fits so nicely in with. Well, actually, this whole series it kind of retells God's story from the perspective of God.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that was 2022.
22.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to 2023.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we got some good ideas about what we'd like to talk about, and you'll have to, I guess, tune in the next week or so to find out what we're going to kick off the new year with. And we're so glad that you joined us over this year for all the ones you've listened to, and we've seen our listenership grow a little bit over this year. I'm happy about that. Yeah. And we have this nice studio that we can.
We're enjoying this
to be able to make these for you. So thank you so much for being part of this, and we encourage you always to subscribe to our channel and to like the video. That helps us a lot, and we look forward to doing this as long as we possibly can for you and having this interaction with you. So I hope you have a great day and time. Until next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.